Wondering what the F has happened to your body and your life? You're in the right place, my friend. Welcome to Season 3 of Transforming 45, where we dive into the incredible stories of how brilliant humans are navigating the midlife squeeze with courage, passion, and a healthy dose of humor. Don't miss out on any of our heart-led episodes. Hit the subscribe button, leave a 5-star review, and if you're inspired, share an episode you love with a friend. It means more to me than I can express that you're choosing to spend time here and sharing our message of midlife revolution. So let's get into it. Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Transforming 45. This week, I am super excited to have Anita Adams, and she is an emerging force in the realm of personal growth and transformation. Celebrated for her role as a best-selling author, captivating speaker, and insightful coach and retreat leader. As the visionary behind the Wisdom Way method, Anita empowers individuals to embark on a journey of conscious living and inspired leadership. With a keen focus on harnessing the power of inner wisdom, she guides her clients and audience toward unlocking their innate brilliance and realizing their fullest potential. Beyond her professional endeavors, Anita cherishes moments immersed in nature and embarking on adventures with her husband, her steadfast companion of 37 years. Anita, we have so much to talk about. Welcome to the show. I'm so glad you're here today.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks so much for having me, Lisa. It's a delight to be here.
All right, so here it is. Tell us, who are you and how did life introduce you to this version?
I am a nature-loving, tree-hugging wild girl. Let's put it that way.
I feel you.
Yeah, it's interesting. I've always been a lover of nature, and it's really come home, the power of nature for me in the last 4 years. I used to be the founder and executive director of a national arts organization that promoted Canadian film and talent. And then the pandemic hit and all of my funding, all of my partners, everybody pulled out. And I'm suddenly, sitting in this debt, going deeper and deeper into debt, having to pay my staff and continue to fulfill obligations. And I'm going deeper and deeper into anxiety. Like, what the hell is going on? And I'm just so stressed. I've never in my life felt this kind of anxiety. Not only was there the stress of what was happening in the world, but I felt my livelihood was threatened and my understanding of who I am was suddenly shaken. And I was asking everybody, what am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? I wasn't asking, I was demanding. What am I supposed to do? Oh my God, I'm going to lose it. And I brought this question to my business coach at the time. And she asked me one simple question in return, and which was, well, Anita, what do you typically do when you're feeling stressed and anxious? I'm like, well, I usually go for a walk in the forest. She's like, perfect. Here's what you're going to do. Every day for the next 30 days, you're going to go for a walk in the woods. I'm like, what? I can't do that. I need business advice, not nature therapy, right? But somehow she managed to get a commitment out of me. And the only way I can make this challenge work was to get up at the crack of dawn and head out the door and walk into the forest. And I brought that question with me every day into the forest. What am I supposed to do? And slowly, ever so slowly over time, I started to really mellow out. I started to connect with my environment. And I was actually starting to feel grateful for my business coach for suggesting this, and grateful for this incredible environment I was living in. I was just feeling really connected. And from this place of connection to this beautiful space and this feeling of gratitude in which that opens your heart, that opens your mind. And I asked that question again, what am I supposed to do? And this time I heard an answer. Something bubbled up from within. It was my voice that I heard, but it was like an older, wiser version of me. And she simply asked, what do you want to do? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I want to do? What am I supposed to do? And the reply came again, no, Anita, what do you want to do? And that really stumped me. It really stumped me. I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. And later that day, I found myself in the bookstore in the back, the spirituality section, clearly still looking for answers. And this one book caught my eye. It was Conversations with God by Neil Donald Walsh. And I pulled it off the shelf and I flipped it open. And this one sentence, it just literally leapt off the page at me. And it simply said, frustration and anxiety come from not listening to the soul. And I realized I'm not listening to the soul. I'm not listening to that inner wisdom, that part of me that really truly knows who I am and what I want. Instead, I'm listening to what others expect from me, what society expects from me, and what I feel like I should be doing. And I really pulled back at that point, and I started to go inward and figure out how to listen. And so I devoted myself to the study of learning how to reconnect with that inner wisdom, our soul, our higher self, our intuition, whatever your word is for that part of you. And now I'm teaching others how to do the same. It's completely transformed my life. And I haven't stopped walking in the forest every day. I am out walking in nature because that is where I find clarity. That's where I find calm. That's where I find my confidence to continue to do the work I'm doing. So it's a pretty powerful way of being. And I'm excited about teaching others how to connect to that and find their answers, their truth, and tap into who they really are and what they really want.
Yeah.
That was a little bit of a long-winded answer to your question, but there you go.
No, it was lovely. It was exactly what it was meant to be, as it always is. And so many things you said really resonated with me, and I can feel myself welling up already. One, because I am very tired today, for very wonderful reasons. And when I am tired, I am a little fragile. Emotions sit on the surface, as I think they do for most of us. And that the power of being in nature is so important. And that is, so I'm just coming off of a weekend where I spent Thursday through Sunday in nature. In Lake Huron, in the forest, in the lush green. And it's in a place that I have been going to since I was 8 years old. And every time I am there is this sense of my history, growth, and evolution as a woman, because everywhere I look, there is a memory of myself at different ages, right? Of the little girl that I was, who was shy and afraid and was worried about how to make friends, to the teenager I became there, who became a leader, who stood in her power. Whenever I need to get into my power stance, I imagine myself there at 16, 17 years old, just walking along the forest paths. And I feel all of the wisdom of everyone who came before and after me sort of rise up and be in that. And then I see my adult self going back and taking my children, and I see my adult self with my children now being part of that community. And it is this beautiful that demands that we notice how our connection to nature is not separate from us. It is of us.
Beautifully said. Yeah. Beautifully said.
Yeah. And then that distinction that you made between the two prompts of what am I supposed to do and what do I want to do? That's a space that I think we need to spend some time, because for everyone in our society and culture, and for women in particular, what we're supposed to do is very evident, right? That is very often the rules are clear, expectations are often very clear. And it is this midlife transition space, however, where what do I want, however, really starts to come to the surface. Yet we have very little practice with listening to what do I want?
Absolutely. There's so much truth to what you're saying. And we've been conditioned that that's selfish to look inward and ask, what is it that I want? I worked with one of my clients and she was so adamant that, that wasn't the way to go, like that what you want is an ego driven attitude. And she really wanted to be somebody that was making a difference in the world. And it took some time to, spend with her and really dig down into that. And it's a fundamental beaten into us belief that we have to be looking outwards, not inwards, that we have to be behaving a certain way and doing certain things for others. And that if we look inward and ask what we want, then we're being selfish. I say when we look inward and ask what we want, we're getting clear about who we are and we understand our values. And only when we understand who we really are and what our values are, can we stand in a place of power and make a difference in the world and be of service to others in this place. And as I say this, I feel the chills through my body. And to me, that is inner wisdom speaking, saying, you are truth speaking right now. You are truth speaking.
Yes, absolutely. And I started for myself and for others as well, started positioning that idea of selfish. It's not, it is full of self.
Yes.
Right? We are full when we give to ourselves, that gives us the space to actually be fully in our bodies, to be fully here and present in our own experience. Exactly. And that is what we are meant to do. Yeah. We are not meant to live other people's stories. We are not meant to live other people's lives. We are meant to live our own. And that means being full of self.
Absolutely. I love that reframe. That's a beautiful way of thinking about it. And that helps you consider how to move forward. One of the things that I ask my clients to do is ask themselves 3 questions. And I like doing this while you're actually in nature. And you start with the first 2 and get clear in the first 2 before you get to the third. But the first one is simply, who am I? Really getting clear on who you are. The second one is, what do I want? And then when you're clear on what it is what you really want, and keep digging down, like, what is it that I really want? And listen, and when something comes up, is that what I want? Is that what I really want? Keep asking that question until you're 100% clear that, yes, that is what I want. And then the third question is to ask, why does it matter? And that's a really important question to ask, but you can't ask it until you are super clear about question number 2, what it is that I really want. And just to go back to my initial story, when I started to ask myself what it is that I want 4 years ago, when everything was kind of crumbling, I realized what I really wanted, or the whisper that finally emerged, was that I wanted to close my business. And that shocked me at first. It was like, what? No, I don't really want to close my business. Do I want to save it? I want to find ways to save my business. And no, the answer was that I want to close my business. And I had to keep coming back to that question for another 2 weeks before it was like, yes, I do want to close my business. And what I understood from that exercise, that daily going back and asking again and again and again, was that the reason I felt like I didn't want to close my business initially, that I wanted to save it, was because my identity was so wrapped up in my business that was the only thing I really knew that I could be doing. I couldn't see anything beyond that. But when I let go of all of that, like you don't think about the future. Think about just right now. What is it that I want? And the future will find its way to you. Just identify what it is that you want right now. And then you can move forward. But it's so interesting to do that exercise and to see what are the blocks that are preventing you from actually leaning into what it is that you truly want.
Yeah, absolutely. And I actually have never told this story before, but when I was going through the same process, in and around the same time, it was a little bit later, it was like 2021 and 2022 for me, where I really started asking that question of, what do I really want? And the answer, when I finally started listening, was divorce. And I was like, but I really love my husband. I really love my partner. I don't want a divorce. But that was the word that kept coming up. And what I have come to realize and understand was because my identity was so tied to my role as an educator, that it was going to feel like a divorce from the work that I was doing, because it was absolutely like every aspect of my life, my friends, my everything that I believed about myself, what I thought was success, all of those things were wrapped up. So it wasn't just resigning from a career. It was like a deep divorce from a life that I had built on a foundation of something I didn't really want in the first place. So I had never wanted to be a teacher. This part I've talked about before. My dad was a teacher. I'd seen what it did to him and to his life because it takes over everything. And I did not want that for myself. But because of the safety involved in that, the very clear societal structure and understanding of what that was, that is what I did. And so it is be a very scary place, like you're saying, to hear the words that come up and know that it may be a massive life change. And on the other hand, sometimes it also is not, because I think people also get caught up in the cycle of, do I have to change everything about my life? And the answer is often no, you don't have to change everything. And you do get to decide. Like when you listen and you start listening to your inner wisdom, you get to decide and feel what is going to be the best changes for you to make.
Yeah, absolutely. And you touched on a couple of things there, that you get to decide, and you can choose how to move forward. You don't have to move forward with anything,
Yes.
right? But you need to have that clarity and then make a choice to take action in this direction or take action in this direction. And choosing to take no action is still a choice, right? So we need to be clear about that. One of the things that I think is really important for people to understand is that they simply need to make time for themselves to hear that inner wisdom, to connect with their higher self or their intuition or whatever your word is. And in our busy hustle culture, a lot of us don't do that. And we all have the ability to do that. We all have the ability. You don't have to go to any wild places. Like, I love connecting with nature. I think that is for me and for so many, it speeds up the process in finding those answers, because you can get so much grounded so much quicker when you're immersing yourself in nature. But it doesn't have to be a wild environment. It's just stepping away from the busyness of your day, getting outside, walking in your neighborhood, going to a city park, sitting under a tree, on the side of the road, or sitting in your backyard in the garden can be enough to help you just unplug. And the important part is to be consistent with that and not expect that you're going to have all the answers to your challenges, in the first 15 minutes. It might take a month of doing, just getting outside regular. It won't actually take that long. If you're consistent, my belief and my experience is within a couple weeks, you find the answers and you find the clarity that you need to be able to move forward. So people just simply need to give themselves the time and the permission to unplug from their busy days and step out. And there's been studies done on the benefit of nature. Science is finally backing this up, and there's so much good resources out there that is supporting this. And one of a study that was done a few years ago out of Yale University said that 120 minutes a week is what you need. And that doesn't have to be 120 minutes all in one go. It can be broken up in smaller chunks, which breaks down to 17.14 minutes per day. And I'm a big advocate of the daily nature dose, and you will find the answers you're looking for, and the clarity, the calm clarity, when you make time for this exercise.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you're speaking, there's 3 words that keep coming up for me, and it's time, action, and stillness. Right. So this is where I constantly have to remind myself that it is okay to take it a little bit slow. It is okay to have some stillness. And I still am working on rewiring those neural pathways in my brain because, thinking back to earlier in our conversation, when we think about all of the ways that we are conditioned, action is where we are programmed. Like that is what we are told is valuable, is action. And I was thinking about the beginning of your story when you were trying to figure out, like, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And your business coach said, go into the woods. I could completely relate to your response to that. It's like, no, like I need to make something happen and I need to make it happen right now. So what action do I need? And when someone counters that with stillness, you're like, totally.
I still struggle with that myself too. I'm an action-oriented gal, and to take the time and just be in stillness, I find really challenging, and I have to constantly remind myself, no, Anita, just slow down. In fact, if you look at any of my social media posts recently, you'll see that's a theme and it's a theme because I'm having to remind myself that I need to slow down and just be present, be connected. Take your time, and the things will unfold as they should, and as I like to say, in divine right time. And I have to constantly remind myself of that.
Yeah, because they are very powerful neural pathways, and that's why time was the other word that was coming up, because when we try something, we want it to happen right away, right? Like we want the change to happen right away. We want it to be instantly successful for us. And when it comes to changing patterns of behavior, shifting state, and rewiring neural pathways, that does not happen instantaneously.
Mm-hmm.
It takes that, like you said earlier, commitment.
Yeah.
Right? Commitment to something, and commitment to something that might feel like it's not working in whatever way you define how something is working.
Yeah, absolutely. Can I share with your listeners my 5-step process for just connecting with your higher self? So it's pretty basic, but this is what I guide my clients to do, and I also offer actually a 30-day free challenge where I walk people through this process. So the first step is simply to get outside, like to unplug, block off time in your calendar and get outside and connect with nature. The second step is to practice your gratitude. This is what I discovered was key in opening that heart center. When you speak your gratitude, it opens up your heart. It elevates your mood. It elevates your vibrational frequency. I know that sounds woo-woo, and there's science behind this. It elevates your frequency, and you're able to receive more and receive the good stuff that's coming. The third step is to connect with nature using all of your senses. So what do you see, hear, smell, feel, taste even? Like really take a moment to connect and get grounded. And that's the key. It gets you here in the present, in the moment. So you can then at that point go inward and connect with your inner being, your higher self, by asking that question, which is the fourth step. What is it that I want? Or who am I? If you're really at the beginning of this, who am I, or what is it that I want? And then the fifth and final step is to listen to what bubbles up without judgment. And that's key because we so easily, are so tied into the societal expectations again, or that inner critic is always fast on the heel to say things like, who are you to do that? Or the inner critic also has the voice of fear, right? And they'll say, no, don't leave your job. Don't change your careers. No. Stay in the familiar, stay in the comfortable. So those 5 steps again: get into nature, speak your gratitude, connect with nature using all of your senses, ask your question, whatever the question may be, but I always recommend, what is it that I want? And then listen to what bubbles up without judgment. And if you do these 5 things consistently, you will find calm clarity. You'll find the confidence to step into inspired action with whatever direction your heart is leading you in.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. It's really helpful. Yeah. And one of the things I started doing intentionally in the morning, so to connect with myself, I'm not in nature yet. I do always make sure I get my feet on the earth.
Yeah.
However,
Yeah.
I found as soon as I would wake up, the first thing I was doing was reaching for my phone and checking, for whatever had happened overnight. And one of the shifts I've started making is that when I wake up in the morning, before I do anything else, is to, while I'm still in those good sort of theta brain waves of sleep, is to to do the rest of the process that you've described. So I start with gratitude, right? What are all the things I'm grateful for from the day before, from now, from just this moment right now? And then I do the heart-centered love out into the world. And then I spend some time thinking about what do I want and really visualizing what I want and pouring my emotion into that. So spending that little bit of time in the morning before I do anything else has really shifted my frequency
Nice.
for sure.
It sets the stage for the day too. May I ask you, when you are asking, what is it that I want? Are you asking for what do I want for the day? Or are you looking and asking for what do I want, in my business right now? Or where do you start? I'm just curious.
Yeah, right now, because I'm so in like business development mode, it's the picture of my big dreams. Like,
Nice.
what are my big dreams that I want for right now? And I think about the emotions that I want. Like this, I love being in collaboration. So I imagine myself like sitting at a table with a team of people with me because that lights me up. I think about having great conversations, right, on podcasts with just like this and how that feels. And I imagine the growth in that. I imagine speaking my message on stages, right? So I think about these things and really connect the emotions of how that makes me feel and why does it matter, right? Going back to your question earlier, why do I want this? When you're connecting really to the emotion of how that makes you feel, it makes it a lot easier to answer that question.
I love that you do that first thing in the morning. I think that's really key because, as you said, when you premise this, is that's you're in that theta brainwave. You're not going into that overactive, busy mind, and you're able to more uh, concisely. Is that the right way of putting it? More concisely tap into that emotion, maybe more easily tap into
Hmm.
the emotion behind it. It sounds like Joe Dispenza type. Stuff. Are you a fan of his work?
It's actually, I've been reading the Jose Silva method.
Okay. Yes. Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
all in that same world, right? But
Yes. Yeah.
yes,
Vishen Lakiani. And
yes,
yes. Okay. Good. I love it. Yeah. It's a
yeah.
very powerful technique to visualize. I've got another quick question for you. How much time do you invest with that in the morning? Is it just a few minutes or is it a longer process?
It varies a little bit. So sometimes if I know that I need to get up and get going, then I'll just let it be like 5, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
If it's a day where I'm like, I don't really want to get out of bed, really just want to stay here, then I let myself go through that process for longer.
This is important.
I,
I'm doing right now, lying in bed thinking about my future.
exactly. And I'm sure that it is my body's way of saying, listen, sister, you need a little bit more rest. So it's okay that you are staying here. And if you need to feel like your brain is doing something while you rest a little bit longer, this is a really good way to spend that time.
Love it. That's inner wisdom coming to you too, right? Saying that your body needs this and you're tuning into that and listening. That's really cool. And I love that this is something that you can fit in 5 or 10 minutes, right? If you're
Absolutely.
feeling like you got to get going, 5 or 10 minutes. It's not a
Yeah.
lot of time in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, it's one of those small changes, thinking back to what we were talking about earlier, when people feel like it's this, I have to change everything about my life. It can literally be something as small, but has huge impacts as giving yourself 5 to 10 minutes before you start your day to just really tune in, to connect inward.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my next step is, even after I like open my eyes from that, not picking up my phone. So that is the next goal, is like pushing that phone pickup until even later in the morning.
Yeah.
And it's one step at a time toward the goals that we have for ourselves.
Absolutely. One step. And something I really love is the idea of the 1% better every day. You know, we get so caught up in that big vision of having to be, you know, radically change our life to create the life we want. And you're so right. It's not about that. It's the little things that make the big difference over time. And when we focus on the smaller things, the 1% better today than we were yesterday, then over time, wow, you do make big radical shifts, but you have to do it in little increments.
Yes, absolutely. So when you think about the you that you were before you made this shift in evolution, so when you think about your you then and your you now, what is the feeling in your body that has shifted the most?
Yeah, joy. I live in so much joy. My life is so simple, really, truly simple. And it's just joyful because there's not a lot of complexity to it. You know, it's, yeah, I'm very content. My husband, one of the whispers, and I say whispers, I actually, the book I launched recently is called Whispers of the Soul. It's this story that I'm sharing a bit with you today. But one of the whispers that I got when I started to really listen was to get rid of our possessions and turn to a more of a nomadic lifestyle. And so we've been living a nomadic lifestyle for almost 4 years, and it's been amazing. It's just, it's so simple and beautiful. There's no complications. You know, we go someplace and we just ask. We go and ask. It's like, does this bring me joy? And yes, this brings me joy. So let's stay here. Let's stay here for a while and see what's next. And yeah, so my life has become a lot more simple since I let go of running my national nonprofit. And I have a business. It's not like I'm sitting on my haunches. I have a coaching business. I have a podcast that I run. I just launched my book. I do retreats, but it's all about teaching people to connect with their inner wisdom and living a simple, beautiful life, connecting with your higher self. My life is radically different than it was 4 years ago.
Yes. Yeah. And what was that process like for you? Because your story might be very different from mine. So please correct me in everywhere I am wrong. And the moving away from a very traditional way of being. And for me at that time, like having a very regular paycheck, like success being wrapped up in all, like the cottage and our home. And right now we're in the process of having to sell our cottage because we can't afford that anymore. And there is some, although, I continue to work on this, like, but what do I really want? Like, what really matters to me? And again, when I was away on the weekend, it is always that, like, all I really want is to sit by the water amongst rocks and trees. Like, that is really all I want. And there still is so much like in my body around what it means to be successful in the things that we have. So what was that process for you as you were releasing sort of all of your material things, and how that shifted your identity?
Interesting question. Yes. So I get that desire to just simply be sitting by rocks and trees and whatnot. That's a big part of the way I want to live too. And I also know I really want to be in service to others. And I know that's part of who you are as well. Mm-hmm. So how do I bring those two things together? And it's different for each of us, right? It's absolutely different for each of us. The transition for me to letting go of that busy, crazy work life. And I have to, I still have to remind myself to let go of that. That I'm still a big work in progress when it comes to letting go of the busyness, because it's so ingrained in us that, and we wear the busy badge like a badge of honor, right? So that's still a very big work in progress. My daily walks in nature is my way of implementing that and slowing that down. The transition from the executive director of an arts organization to, recreating a new life, that was a full year of transition. And it was a full year. So I took a year to close one business down. And an additional 6 months on top of that to really lean into what I felt called to do. Because it felt really big and I pushed it away for a very long time. So it was over a year when I first got the insight, if you will, to teach people how to connect to their higher self, to their inner wisdom, to connect with nature. I just like, who am I to do that? I'm no guru. I'm no spiritual leader. I'm Anita.
Yeah.
I'm a nature loving, tree hugging gal, but who else am I? And I had that. That's the critic. That's inner voice of the DJ, the nasty DJ spinning the nasty DJ records. That took some training to get that version of me to quiet down. But yeah, it was over a year of me going into the forest and checking in about what it is that I wanted to do. And if I've got time, I'd love to share another short little story with you.
Yeah, please.
So part of this nomadic adventure, my husband and I, we gave up our possessions. We moved to a little island in the Pacific Northwest to start. And then we were only allowed to be there for a time. It was a furnished 1930s beautiful oceanfront property. It felt like a gift from God. Seriously, it was the most incredible place. But our time there was limited, and then we had to move on. And we had a month where we were between the next thing, and we decided to go on a kayaking trip, for a month-long kayaking trip. So we downsized again and lived out of a kayak and a tent and paddled 400 kilometers out BC's Pacific coast. And it was something if you had asked me even just a year before doing this trip if I would ever do something like that, I would say no freaking way. I'm not strong enough, capable enough. I had all this dialogue in the head telling me that I wasn't capable of doing something like that. And here I am now. Now it's 3 weeks into this trip, 21 days, and I'm sitting in the great big blue Pacific Ocean. And this day was beautifully flat, calm, so peaceful. And the blue sky, and the water just kind of melted into the skyline in the distance. And there was seals off to one side, and there was an eagle off in the distance, squawking in the trees. And my husband was in his boat about 10 meters behind me. And it was hot, and I would take my hat off and dip it into the water and then drip it over my head. And this cool water was flowing down my body. And I just felt so immersed in nature and so connected with this environment, like deeply, deeply connected. I was deeply grateful for this experience as well. And I felt so in awe with the beauty around me. And I felt in awe with myself. And I've never, ever, ever felt in awe of who I am. And I had done this. I was doing this. I'm sitting in this boat, traveling so far under my own power. And then I started to think, what else am I saying I can't do? What other limiting beliefs have been holding me back? And that's when I heard that inner voice again speak to me. And all she simply said was, it's time. And I realized it's time, Anita, time to stop playing small, time to step into who you were here to be, who you were born to be, and to help others, guide others, own up to what you're capable of, and be of service. And it was a most remarkable experience to have that awareness. It was a year after I had the first insight that I should be teaching people how to tap into inner wisdom. When months before this trip when I was curious about what that would look like. And curiosity is such a great thing. You don't have to commit to anything. Just get curious when you get these little hits, these little, I like to call them divine downloads. Get curious. Don't commit, just get curious. And when I got curious, the first thing that came to me was to create a spiritual wellness center. I'm like, whoa, that's way too big. I can't do that. And then the next thing that came was to host a podcast, to host retreats, to write a book. And while I was on that kayaking trip, I'm like, all right, I'm going to figure out how to do a podcast. I'm going to figure out how to do retreats. And eventually I'll write a book. And I'm really pleased to say I've now done all three and continue to work on bringing the message of connecting with nature, connecting with your higher self to tap into your true potential and who you were born to be. That's my story of finding courage, just stepping into doing things. Yeah.
It's so beautiful. And I love that. And I think it's a beautiful place to leave this conversation with being in awe with yourself.
Yeah.
And being in awe of the mystery of, and what, if I can do this, what else can I possibly do? And it is such a joyful place to be in. So,
Absolutely.
Anita, thank you so much for your time and your wisdom today. All of the ways that you can connect with Anita will be in the show notes of this episode. So make sure you go down there and check it out. And thank you so much, Anita.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you for being part of the Transforming 45 community. Your support means the world to us. Stay tuned for more juicy episodes and remember to keep showing up to your life with the love and magic you deserve. Until next time.